Welcome to Deep Dive Podcast, where we dive deep so you can see clearer.
So back in the 1950s, psychologists stumbled onto this pretty terrifying glitch in the mammalian brain.
Oh, right, yeah.
Have you ever looked into the rat in the box experiment?
It's the Skinner box stuff, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if you put a rat in a box, right, and you reward it with a little food pellet every single time it presses a lever.
Right. It just eats and then
it just walks away. It gets bored. I mean, it learns the system, realizes it's predictable, and it's like, okay, cool, I'm done.
Yeah, it's completely satisfied.
But if you take that same rat and you reward it completely randomly.
This is where it gets dark.
It gets so dark. So sometimes you give it a massive feast, right? Mm-hmm. And then sometimes absolutely nothing. And then sometimes you literally deliver a painful electric shock.
Right.
The rat doesn't walk away. It actually becomes obsessively fixated on the lever.
It's just entirely consumed by it.
Yeah. It will literally press that lever until it starves to death.
Yeah.
Just completely consumed by that unpredictable cycle. And today, for this deep dive, we are basically exploring the human equivalent of that exact lever.
I mean, the translation from a lab rat to a human being in a relationship is, it's seamless, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We really like to think that our high-level reasoning protects us from that base animal conditioning, but, it doesn't.
No, not at all.
When we encounter someone who gives us those totally unpredictable emotional rewards and punishments, our neurochemistry just reacts exactly like that rat in the box.
It's terrifying when you think about it.
It really is. The human lever is unpredictable emotional connection. And our inability to walk away from it forms the basis of some of our absolute most destructive behaviors.
So welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Today we're looking at exactly how the human mind rationalizes that total inability to walk away. And our source material today is really fascinating. We've got raw transcripts from 2 pieces, audio and video pieces uploaded by a YouTube channel called Free Range Katana 369.
Right, and the titles are CANDU, that's CANDU, and Night and Day.
Exactly. So our mission here is to analyze these 2 incredibly raw, almost poetic texts side by side.
Yet to really understand the contrasting psychological frameworks that we as humans use to process these intense, just inexplicable connections.
And what I think is so cool about these specific transcripts is just how unpolished they are.
Oh, absolutely. That's the best part.
Right. Yeah. We are examining these raw expressions of feeling that actually still have the auto caption quirks and the structural glitches right in the text.
Yeah. And instead of editing those out or correcting them, we're treating this material almost like an ancient emotionally charged artifact.
Yes.
Because every glitch, every mistranslation, it provides this literal window into the unfiltered human experience.
Right. So you, the listener, you're going to hear phrases today like disappears like a ghost hose.
Which is amazing.
It is. That's from CANDU. Or surrender to the poor, which is from Night and Day. And we are leaning all the way into those.
Totally.
Because the real reason you should care about these 2 specific texts is that they actually offer this masterclass in relational psychology.
They really do. It's textbook psychology played out in poetry.
Right. We're going to break down these complex clinical concepts like trauma bonding and cognitive dissonance. But instead of, reading a dry textbook, we're mapping them directly onto the lyrics from this channel.
Which is so much more relatable.
So let's just jump right into the inciting incident. Let's look at how the connection actually begins in each text.
Okay, yeah. Because the origin point of any profound connection really dictates the entire psychological architecture that comes after it.
Okay, unpack that a little for us.
So in the first piece, CANDU, the initial spark, is just characterized by this absolute localized sensory overload.
Oh, yeah. The text says, I see your eyes sparkle with 1,000 stars. And then it goes on, that moment I knew our soul recognized each other. Every word you say plays like a song in my brain.
Yeah. Notice how the focus there is entirely internal and neurochemical.
It feels like an invasive hijacking of the senses, honestly.
Completely.
Every word you say plays like a song in my brain. That points to this immediate saturation of the brain's reward centers.
Yeah, it's like it feels akin to hitting a jackpot on a slot machine.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right. The bells ring, the lights are flashing, and your brain is just flooded with this massive localized hit of dopamine and norepinephrine.
And the stimuli demand this hyper-focused attention precisely because the reward is so immediate. And so loud.
Exactly. The slot machine perfectly captures those dopaminergic pathways just lighting up when the other person is there.
Yeah.
Like that sparkle with 1,000 stars thing.
Yeah.
That's a brain's orienting response just going into complete overdrive.
The speaker is basically locked in this closed loop with the object of their fixation.
Right. But now I want to contrast that immediate flashing urgency with the arrival described in the second text, night and day.
Oh, man. The shift in scale here is just staggering.
It's totally different.
So in Night and Day, the speaker says, you walked in quiet like midnight rain. No warning signs. Straight into my veins.
And then we spoke like galaxies colliding in the dark.
Yeah, I mean, we just moved from a song inside a single brain to the literal collision of celestial bodies.
It's massive.
Right. If CANDU is this flashing slot machine demanding immediate attention, Night and Day is the experience of witnessing a total solar eclipse.
Oh, that's a brilliant way to put it. Because the psychology of awe is fundamentally different from the psychology of a thrill.
How so?
Well, a thrill like the slot machine, it amplifies the ego. You feel activated, you're alert, you are hyper-present in your own scheme.
You're pulling the lever.
Right. But awe, the solar eclipse, diminishes the ego.
Ah.
When you witness something of cosmic proportions, the boundaries of the self just kind of dissolve.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, so you walked in quiet, like midnight rain, suggests an entire environment shifting rather than just a specific event happening to you.
It's a slow drip realization of a paradigm shift rather than that immediate chemical spike.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, think about it. A solar eclipse doesn't actually make a sound.
Right.
The temperature just subtly drops, the light turns weird and eerie, and you suddenly realize you are just this tiny organism standing on a rock floating in a vast universe.
It's terrifying.
It really is. The arrival in Night and Day is massive, it's unstoppable, and it's fundamentally terrifying because it requires literally no participation from the speaker.
Yeah, that's the key difference. With the slot machine in CANDU, you are an active participant. You are literally pulling the lever.
But with the solar eclipse in Night and Day, you are entirely passive. The rain just falls on you, the galaxies collide around you.
Yet, and this is what's so fascinating, despite the mechanics of the arrival being diametrically opposed, both of these scenarios result in the total suspension of human agency.
Oh, wow.
Whether you're hijacked by the internal song or you're overtaken by the midnight rain, your illusion of control is instantly shattered.
And so the critical question becomes, how does the human mind attempt to survive that loss of control once the initial spark transitions into like an ongoing dynamic?
Right, which brings us to the core conflict of the first piece, CANDU.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because when we examine the full transcript of CANDU, the dynamic that results is what the text ultimately calls a sweet disaster.
It's a sweet disaster, yeah.
And the vocabulary is just completely drenched in the language of pathology.
It really is.
We see all these words associated with illness and addiction and just extreme polarity. Like the text literally says, you're my new addiction, I can't escape.
And then it goes into, I want to run, but I freeze. I want to quit, but I want to stay, but I bleed.
I mean, wow.
We are looking at the clinical anatomy of dependency here.
Yeah.
When the speaker says, I want to stay, but I bleed, they're defining the physical reality of a trauma bond.
And let's clarify that for the listener, because trauma bonding is a term that gets thrown around a lot on social media.
Oh, constantly.
Yeah.
And usually incorrectly.
Right. Pop psychology suggests it's just bonding over a shared trauma. Like, oh, we both had bad childhoods, so we're trauma bonded.
Right. Which is not what it means at all.
Right.
A trauma bond is actually a biological tether. It's created by a specific cycle of abuse or emotional withdrawal, which is then followed by positive reinforcement.
Ah, so it's the rat in the box again.
Exactly. The brain is subjected to extreme stress, which spikes your cortisol and activates your sympathetic nervous system's fight or flight response.
Which explains that lyric, I want to run, but I freeze.
Yes. The threat response is activated, but the psychological dependency literally overrides the motor function.
They are paralyzed by their own fluctuating neurochemistry.
Yeah, and the really tragic part is the speaker is entirely aware of how toxic it is.
Oh, completely. They literally say, why you hear me like a wind disappears like a ghost hose.
Which is such an amazing line.
It really is. And then they say, I hate the way you pull me in, but I come back again and again.
Okay, we have to talk about disappears like a ghost hose.
Please, yes,
Yeah.
because it's an auto-caption artifact, right?
Right. It's obviously a glitch,
Yeah.
but it perfectly encapsulates the dynamic of reaching out for an avoidant partner.
How so?
Think about what a hose is designed to do. It delivers a vital resource.
Yeah.
Water sustenance, relief from the heat.
Right.
So a ghost hose implies the promise of that relief manifesting right in front of you, but then it dematerializes the exact second you try to grasp it.
Oh, man. It's a phantom lifeline.
Exactly.
It's like a person dying of thirst in the desert. They see the water, they reach for it, and they just grab empty air.
And this maps so perfectly onto B.F. Skinner's intermittent reinforcement model we were talking about earlier.
Right, because the animal only becomes obsessed when the reward is unpredictable.
Yeah. And the speaker in CANDU literally states, "You take my breath, you steal my peace, still I crave you endlessly."
Wow. So the stealing of the piece is the electric shock in the box. And the occasional return of the partner, the phantom water, is the food pellet.
Exactly. And this creates a state of intense hypervigilance. The brain becomes so desperate to predict the next reward that it devotes all of its cognitive resources just to monitoring that partner.
Which culminates in what I think is the defining lyric of the whole piece.
Which one?
You're the poison and the cure.
Oh, yeah. That's the crux of it.
Because in a standard toxic dynamic that's driven by this intermittent reinforcement, your baseline of emotional equilibrium is just completely destroyed.
Right.
And so the person causing the acute distress, the poison, becomes the only recognized source of validation capable of relieving that distress.
The cure.
Yes. Imagine you're wandering through a desert, right? You're severely dehydrated.
Okay.
And someone walks up to you with a tall glass of ice water, but they tell you, hey, just so you know, this contains a drop of arsenic.
Oh, wow.
You drink it anyway, because the immediate visceral agony of dying of thirst in that moment completely overrides your abstract knowledge of the slow-acting poison.
Right, because the thirst is screaming at you.
Exactly. But then the arsenic starts to ravage your system. You develop a fever, you're sweating, you become exponentially more dehydrated than you were before you took the drink.
And what's the only thing that will soothe that fever?
More water.
Yeah.
And the only person holding the water is the exact same person who's lacing it with arsenic.
It's a biological loop.
Mm-hmm.
You are trapped in this cycle where the source of your destruction is literally indistinguishable from your salvation.
The withdrawal from the connection causes a physiological pain so acute that the brain misidentifies the source of the pain as the only valid source of comfort.
The speaker isn't chasing joy anymore.
No.
They're just chasing the cessation of agony.
And usually, right, this kind of dynamic relies on one person being the victim and the other person being the villain.
Right. It's usually very black and white in pop culture.
But CANDU actually shifts perspectives halfway through. It gives a voice to the partner who is inflicting the intermittent reinforcement.
Yeah, that pivot is so interesting.
The text reads, I know I caught you pain. Baby, trust me. I never meant to. I was sick. I was lost drowning deep inside myself.
And then I was fighting just to breathe. I wasn't hiding someone else.
So we hear the internal justification for the withdrawal.
We do. And the text continues. Baby, listen, I'm not gone, just broken strong. I pull back because I'm scared that I hurt you alone.
Right. You need to know you're a child from my heart.
All the pain, all the fight tearing me aside. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I just cried out, I'm scared, baby.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting to me. Is this profound self-awareness, or is this the ultimate toxic disclaimer?
That is the $1 million question.
Right. Are they utilizing their brokenness as a structural shield to evade accountability for the actual damage they're inflicting?
It certainly functions that way.
Like, I pull back because I'm scared that I hurt you directly translates to, I am actively hurting you right now in order to prevent myself from hurting you in the future.
It's a complete labyrinth of circular logic.
It is. And it's designed to paralyze the person on the receiving end.
Well, the real danger lies in the fact that the vulnerability they're expressing is likely genuine.
You think so?
Oh, absolutely. The fear of intimacy, that sensation of drowning inside oneself, the literal paralysis of, I couldn't move, I couldn't speak. These are authentic physiological manifestations of a deeply rooted avoidant attachment style.
Which usually stems from early childhood trauma, right?
Exactly. The nervous system of the person pulling away genuinely perceives emotional closeness as a literal life-threatening event.
Okay, but a genuine panic attack doesn't negate the collateral damage it causes to the other person.
No, it absolutely doesn't, and that's the tragedy of it.
Because weaponizing that vulnerability essentially demands empathy from the person who is being harmed.
Right.
By crying out, I'm scared, and identifying as sick and lost, the person pouring the arsenic is basically demanding that the poison victim console them for the anxiety they felt while pouring it.
Oh, man. That is such a brutal way to put it, but it's completely accurate. It creates this impossible double bind.
Yeah.
The victim is forced to manage their own trauma of abandonment while simultaneously carrying the emotional weight of their partner's psychological fragility.
Because to leave someone who is openly declaring that they are broken and drowning feels like a profound moral failure.
Exactly. The trap just snaps shut, locking both of these individuals in their respective roles.
But CANDU actually resolves this bind with just brutal clarity at the end.
It really does. The first voice returns.
Yeah, essentially acknowledging the excuses, but bypassing them entirely. They say, I want to stop, but I fall back to you. You're my sweet disaster.
They see the cycle. They recognize the trap.
And they actively choose to surrender to the devastation.
Yeah. It's an intensely grounded, almost chaotic acceptance of pain that's caused by the chaotic presence of another human being.
But, and this is where we transition, what happens when that poison is removed entirely? What happens when the brain, which is now entirely addicted to the intermittent spikes of chaos, suddenly hits a solid wall of absolute silence?
Well, the psychological architecture has to radically change.
Yeah.
When we transition into the second text, Night and Day, we move from a story of chaotic collision to a story of the agonizing void.
The vocabulary totally shifts. We go from words like addiction and bleed to words like past, reborn, silence, and prison.
The speaker is no longer grappling with a push-pull dynamic. They are grappling with total withdrawal.
The weaponization of silence really takes center stage here.
Yeah.
The speaker asks, why does it feel so real when we barely even know why the silence deeper than a blade ever could?
That concept, that silence cuts deeper than a blade, is critical to understanding this piece.
Unpack that.
Well, when someone yells at you or even argues with you, they're giving you data.
Right.
They're providing material that your brain can process, react to, and formulate a defense against.
But absolute silence provides nothing.
Exactly. It is an emotional sensory deprivation tank.
Oh, that's such a good analogy. Because to understand the speaker's descent in Night and Day, we really have to look at what the brain does when it's deprived of external stimuli.
Right, neurologically speaking.
Yeah, so when the brain is engaged in active problem solving or processing incoming data, the task positive network is active.
Right.
But when external input ceases, when the silence sets in, the brain automatically switches to the default mode network.
The DMN.
Exactly. And the DMN is responsible for rumination, daydreaming, and narrative construction.
Because the brain abhors a vacuum.
It really does. If you put someone in a physical sensory deprivation tank, the lack of input actually causes the brain to panic.
Yeah, it starts hallucinating.
Right. It begins to hallucinate colors, shapes, sounds, just to give itself something to process.
And in an emotional sensory deprivation tank, which is caused by being stonewalled or ghosted, the DMN begins hallucinating meaning.
Yes, you start constructing these elaborate narratives just to fill the silence.
And this hallucination of meaning is exactly what we see happening in the text.
Oh, totally. The speaker says, we spoke like galaxies colliding, like deja vu, like we've been here before, two souls reborn meeting once more.
They are staring into the empty void left by the other person and filling it with concepts of reincarnation and past lives.
And this is where cognitive dissonance takes the wheel, right?
Oh, absolutely. Cognitive dissonance.
Just to remind the listener, established by Leon Festinger, cognitive dissonance is the extreme mental discomfort experienced by someone holding two or more contradictory beliefs.
Right. So in this specific case, belief A is, we spoke like galaxies colliding. This connection is profound and spiritually unique.
And belief B is, they have completely abandoned me and refused to speak to me.
Exactly. And the human ego simply cannot sustain the friction between those two realities.
It would break.
It would. So to resolve that dissonance without shattering the ego, the mind has to alter one of the beliefs.
Because accepting that the connection wasn't actually profound or that the other person simply didn't care enough to stick around is just way too painful.
Too devastating. Therefore, the brain resolves the dissonance through cosmic determinism. Speaker asks, is this love or a temporary flame or a promise written long before we came?
But I do want to challenge the idea that cosmic determinism is merely a pathological ego defense.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, isn't it also a valid historical framework that human beings have used for millennia to make meaning out of suffering?
Sure.
Like, by framing the relationship as a promise written long before we came, maybe the speaker isn't just protecting their pride. Maybe they are attempting to organize an experience that just feels way too massive for a single human nervous system to hold.
I think it functions as both, honestly. Historically, mythology and theology served to explain natural phenomena that terrified early humans.
Right. Lightning, droughts, eclipses.
Exactly. And here, the speaker is using the exact same mechanism to explain the terrifying phenomenon of profound heartbreak.
Yeah.
By elevating the failure of the relationship to a celestial inevitability, they remove human agency entirely.
Ah, I see what you mean.
It is so much easier to tell yourself that you are trapped in a gravity we cannot explain than to accept the mundane, brutal reality that the other person just chose to walk away.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You can actually see the speaker's mind frantically running through these permutations of reality, just interrogating the void.
Right.
They ask, is it distance or decision healing or escaping love, her illusion with truth? How are you shaping up?
They're grasping at anything.
And then they elevate that internal struggle to the level of epic conflict. If this is real, why does it feel like war? If this is fake, why am I waiting at a locked door?
They acknowledge the physiological restructuring that's happening to them too.
Yeah, where they say, I ain't afraid of fire, but this burn hits different. You got into my blood, now silence feels like prison.
Right. They recognize they are fundamentally altered by this person, yet they cannot extract the closure they actually need to heal.
Which leads to a deeply dangerous romanticization of the abandonment itself.
Oh, yeah. This is the part that hurts to read.
The speaker says, night and day chasing each other in the space between the silence we create.
Yeah.
And later they ask, if you're just a ghost, why can't I let go?
The phrasing there is key.
Yeah, by calling it the silence we create, the speaker is pretending that the ghosting is this mutual choreographed dance.
Rather than a unilateral severing.
Exactly.
And this points directly to a failure of object constancy.
Oh, let's talk about that.
So in developmental psychology, object constancy is the ability to understand that a relationship remains stable even when the other person is not physically present or actively validating you.
Right, like knowing your mom still loves you even when she leaves the room.
Exactly. When that fractures in adulthood, the mind compensates by maintaining the illusion of the relationship through magical thinking.
Ah.
Framing the silence as a space we create suggests this silent telepathic agreement. Like, the connection isn't dead, it is simply migrated to an invisible higher frequency.
Wow. They insist the structural integrity of the bond remains intact.
They really do.
They say, two worlds align with the same frequency, one heart be split, you cut the symmetry.
They are literally sitting in the dark, convincing themselves that the other person's silence means they're engaging in a high-level spiritual standoff.
Rather than simply, moving on with their life.
Yeah. And this state of emotional destitution brings us to what I think is the most striking auto-caption artifact in Night and Day.
Oh, yes. The transcript literally reads, too fast, too deep, too real to escape. I surrender to the poor, never felt this way.
I surrender to the poor.
It is obviously a glitch, right? It was likely meant to be surrendered to the pull.
Right.
But if we read it exactly as it appears on the page, it offers this devastating interpretation.
It really does.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we accept surrender to the poor as a valid piece of this emotional tapestry, it brilliantly encapsulates the speaker's emotional bankruptcy.
Yes.
They have been starved by the silence. They have exhausted all their cognitive resources trying to hallucinate meaning.
They are reduced to an impoverished state.
Exactly. And in this line, they are finally laying down their arms. They are surrendering to the poverty of the situation.
They are entirely hollowed out, and they're just accepting that they have absolutely nothing left to give.
Yeah.
Which perfectly transitions us to the ultimate comparison between these two transcripts.
How they end.
Exactly. How they choose to resolve the unresolvable. Because the endings of CANDU and Night and Day demonstrate two completely divergent survival strategies.
Especially regarding human agency and the locus of control.
So for the listener, let's quickly define locus of control.
Sure. In psychology, the locus of control refers to the degree to which people believe they have control over the outcomes of events in their lives.
Okay.
An internal locus of control means you believe your own actions dictate the outcome.
You're at the wheel.
Right. But an external locus of control means you believe outside forces like fate, luck, or the universe determine your path.
So looking at CANDU, it ends with a total, exhausted collapse into an internal, albeit very self-destructive, locus of control.
It really does.
The final lines are, I want to stop, but I fall back to you. I can do. You're the poison and the cure. You're the poison and the cure. Oh, CANDU, you're my sweet disaster.
So the resolution in CANDU is surrender. But it is a surrender to a known earthly reality.
Yeah.
There is no delusion that the relationship will magically heal. There is just a clear-eyed, brutal acceptance of the disaster.
The speaker takes full ownership of their inability to break the trauma bond.
Right. By stating I fall back to you, they own their addiction to the intermittent reinforcement.
They know the water is laced with arsenic, and they are actively choosing to drink it because they simply cannot withstand the thirst.
It is a tragic posture, but it is deeply accountable.
Right. They are not blaming the stars. They are admitting their own human frailty.
But Night and Day, however, ends in an entirely different psychological postcode.
Completely. The final lines of Night and Day are, "Tell me, is this love mine or just a borrow time? Because I'm falling into the silence of another sky. We're not broken, just unfinished. If the universe wants us, it will pull us back again."
Night and Day.
Yeah, we're not broken, just unfinished. If the universe wants us, it will pull us back again.
This is the ultimate manifestation of an external locus of control.
Yeah.
Unlike CANDU, the speaker in Night and Day ends in a total outsourcing of agency.
They just hand it over.
Right, by declaring the relationship unfinished and handing the jurisdiction of the outcome over to the universe, they completely absolve themselves of the responsibility to act.
They basically take the remote control of their own emotional life, point it at the clouds, and just throw it away.
Exactly. It functions as the ultimate waiting room.
Right. The logic is if the universe wants us, it will fix it.
Yeah.
Therefore, I don't have to do the grueling, unglamorous work of blocking their number or going to therapy.
Grieving the loss.
Yeah, grieving the loss and rebuilding my life. I can simply sit inside the silence we create indefinitely.
Protected by the hope that the galaxies will eventually collide again.
Man, that's heavy.
From an evolutionary perspective, hope is a survival mechanism.
Right.
It's designed to keep us moving forward in times of scarcity.
Right.
But when hope is misapplied to a situation that actually requires acceptance of loss, it becomes a paralytic.
It freezes you.
Yeah. The speaker is falling into the silence of another sky, entirely disconnected from the reality in front of them, suspended in a state of suspended animation.
So, turning this directly to you, the listener.
Yeah.
When you encounter a connection in your own life that bypasses your logic and fractures your emotional baseline, which of these defense mechanisms do you deploy?
Do you take the path of CANDU?
Right. Do you accept the messy, gritty reality of your own toxic choices and remain in the sweet disaster because you are addicted to the neurochemical spikes of the poison and the cure?
Or do you take the path of Night and Day?
Do you retreat into the DMN? Do you hallucinate a cosmic destiny and tell yourself that you aren't broken? You are simply waiting for the universe to correct its timeline.
Because ultimately both of these texts are attempting to solve the exact same problem.
The profound terror of powerlessness.
Exactly. Whether you construct a biological framework centered on addiction and craving, or a theological framework centered on celestial inevitability, you are building an architecture of meaning to house a very simple truth.
Which is that you cannot walk away from someone who is hurting you.
Right. You build the architecture so you don't have to look directly at the void.
And Free Range Katana 369 has managed to map both of these sprawling architectures perfectly within these two raw transcripts.
They really have.
I mean, we started our analysis deep in the visceral blood and guts reality of CANDU.
Yeah.
We watched a nervous system become hijacked by intermittent reinforcement, trapped between the agony of withdrawal and the phantom lifeline of the ghost hose.
Ultimately choosing to surrender to the earthly disaster.
And from there, we traced the psychological migration into the existential expanse of Night and Day.
We examined how the mind, when it's starved by the weaponization of silence, will utilize cognitive dissonance to hallucinate destiny.
We saw the profound danger of object constancy failure, right?
Right.
Where the victim romanticizes their own abandonment.
Ultimately outsourcing their agency to the universe to avoid the finality of grief.
It is the biology of heartbreak side by side with the theology of heartbreak.
It is.
And we have analyzed these as two distinct, contrasting frameworks for processing intense connections.
But I actually want to leave you with a final proposition that might recontextualize everything we've discussed today.
Okay, I'm ready.
We have treated CANDU and Night and Day as two separate experiences.
Yeah.
Right? Perhaps representing two different types of people.
Right.
But what if they are not two different relationships? What if they are the exact same relationship, simply experienced across a timeline?
Oh, wow. The progression of the decay.
Precisely.
Uh-huh.
Is CANDU the frantic, neurochemically saturated experience of being inside the storm? fighting for survival while the intermittent reinforcement is still active?
Yeah.
And is night and day simply the mythologized story we tell ourselves years later when the person is entirely gone and we are looking up at the night sky, desperately trying to make the damage mean something?
Man, when you are in the burning building, it is a sweet disaster.
Yeah.
But when you are standing in the ashes 5 years later, the smoke becomes midnight rain.
That's exactly it.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. You have been an essential part of this conversation. Take that timeline theory with you, examine the architectures you've built in your own life, and keep questioning whether the narrative you are holding on to is sieving your healing or simply masking your surrender.